Welcome back. At some point in your life, someone has probably said this to you: God helps those who help themselves. Maybe it was a parent pushing you to work harder. Maybe it was a pastor encouraging the congregation to stop waiting and start doing. Maybe you have said it yourself. It sounds biblical. It sounds wise. It sounds like something Jesus would say. But here is the truth: it is not in the Bible, not even close. The phrase actually traces back to ancient Greek literature. The historian Algernon Sidney used a version of it in the 17th century, and Benjamin Franklin later popularized it in Poor Richard's Almanac in 1736, a secular self-help proverb written by a founding father who was not even an Orthodox Christian. Somehow, over generations, it migrated from a colonial almanac into the church, and people began quoting it as scripture. A 2000 survey by the Barna Research Group found that 82% of Americans believed the phrase "God helps those who help themselves" was a direct Bible verse. 82%. It is one of the most widely believed verses in Scripture, and it does not exist. But the problem is not just that it is misattributed. The problem is what it actually teaches, because when you hold it up against what the Bible really says, it points in almost the opposite direction. The phrase implies that God's help is conditional, that He steps in only after you have done your part, that grace is a reward for effort. That if you are struggling and have not figured it out yet, maybe you just have not helped yourself enough. That is not the gospel. That is performance-based religion dressed in practical wisdom. Let's look at what the Bible actually says. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9, Paul writes about asking God to remove a painful struggle from his life. And what God says back to him: "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Not in your strength, in your weakness. God's power shows up most clearly not when you have pulled yourself together, but when you have nothing left. Then there is the story of the Israelites at the Red Sea in Exodus 14. Pharaoh's army is behind them. The sea is in front of them. They have absolutely no way out, and Moses says something remarkable in verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Be still. That is the opposite of help yourself. God did not wait for Israel to figure out a strategy. He moved when they were completely out of options. And look at how Jesus describes who the kingdom of heaven belongs to in Matthew chapter 5 verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit. Those who recognize they have nothing to bring, those who come empty. Those are the ones Jesus points to, not the ones who helped themselves first and then brought God the receipt. Now this does not mean the Bible promotes laziness. Proverbs is full of wisdom about hard work and responsibility. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 verse 10 says, "If a man will not work, he shall not eat." Scripture values diligence, that is real. But there is a massive difference between working hard as an act of stewardship and believing that your effort is what unlocks God's help. One is faithfulness. The other is self-reliance with a spiritual label on it. The danger of "God helps those who help themselves" is what it does to people quietly over time. It turns faith into a performance. You push harder, pray louder, do more, and when life still falls apart, you assume you simply did not do enough. The burnout is not just physical. It is spiritual, because you have been taught that grace is something you earn by showing God you already tried. But the Bible describes grace differently. In Romans chapter 5 verse 8, Paul writes, "But God demonstrates His own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." While we were still sinners, while we had nothing to offer, while we had not helped ourselves at all, that is when God moved. Grace does not wait for you to get your act together. It meets you in the middle of the mess, not on the other side of it. So the next time someone tells you God helps those who help themselves, you can respectfully tell them that Benjamin Franklin said that, not God. Thank you so much for watching. If this shifted something for you, please subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below. I would love to know if this is something you grew up believing. You might be surprised how many people did.